I've heard all the different phrases like readers are leaders and learners are earners, right? And so if you want to be a great leader and you want to earn a whole lot, then read and be a learner. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Life at 10 Tenths, where we inspire you to live at the pinnacle of your ability and purpose. As always, I am here with Garrett Fry. My name is Matt Pinelli, and gosh, we are so excited that you guys are here with us today because we love doing this, Garrett. We love getting on this podcast, sharing with all of you, and helping you guys grow an incredible business and an incredible lifestyle because that makes the world a better place. Ain't that right, Garrett?
Ain't that right? Good morning, sir.
I mean, come on, we're here to elevate this whole, people are like, oh, this is so altruistic, so blah. Yes, I get it. I get into these little phases of, being all virtuous and high level energy and positivity. I had a great gratitude session this morning with Luca. And that's probably why I'm sitting here like this. So,
well, again, I appreciate this with you, and I am grateful that we get to do this and that this is part of our world. As I've said to many people, I look forward to podcasting mornings probably more than it's what allows me to get out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning to come and do this. So, otherwise, I like to sleep. I do like to sleep.
Sleep is important. We shouldn't, skirt that. I'm in a phase of life where sleep just does not happen as much as it should, but hey, it is what it is.
Yeah. No, you got young ones. They do grow up. I will say you go through different stages of not being able to sleep because then you're worried about, are they coming home and how did they get home and are they being safe out there? So like it perpetuates forever, man. So just, you should have got sleep when you could have. That's all I'm going to say.
It was your fault for not getting sleep before you had kids. Now you're dealing. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway.
That was your fault. All right. So I'm excited, man, to go into this today because we've talked about this kind of idea for an episode for a while. You and I, Matt, we're what I refer to as learners. We love learning and gathering new information and growing together and being around people that we can grow with. And that's what we want to talk about today was, being in that learning mindset, being in that kind of learning zone that is so valuable to help us move forward and kind of how it's worked for us and what we see as success patterns around. So I'm excited to go down this topic with you today.
Yeah, me too. And I think it's important when you look at the success habits of people in general and you read what's written in books and everything is, a lot of people point to just being a continuous learner, however that is, right? We happen to do a lot of reading and audiobooks, also YouTube videos. Like there's so many sources that I go to learn things, also engaging in conversation with others, like having the last few episodes with Eric and Luca, like learning about their marketing minds and how they approach email and social media. Those are things that I'm consuming. That's the beauty of having guests on the podcast too, Garrett, is it's really an opportunity for me, and I know you as well, to learn from these folks and share it with all of you, the listeners. And particularly with what we do, I think it's important that we're always learning so that we can continue to help others grow. But when you turn your brain into a learning mode, it changes how you grow, right? You don't get stuck in plateaus. And I always say this, Garrett, if you're stuck in a plateau of your business, there's some things that you can do tactically probably to figure that out. But also well, what are you reading currently? What are you doing to just expand your learning, even if it's outside your business, because that can change a framework that can allow you to break beyond that plateau as well, just getting in that learning mode.
And it's interesting is the learning is there's lots of reasons to learn. Well, one is, obviously we want to gain, our wisdom and our smarts about everything that's around us. The other part, and I learned this from my son. So I'm going to bring my son Otto into this. I know Otto kind of, he's actually used to be the president of the podcast when we had the old podcast. He's my 16-year-old son. He does play a strong role in this. He usually critiques us on our mics and our cameras to tell us what we should and shouldn't be doing. But, it's interesting when you talk about being in a learning mindset. I've never met anybody who's more in a learning mindset all the time. And Matt, I've shared a little bit about this with you, but part of it is growing in wisdom. The other part is being able to have conversations with people around you. There's a lot of times I watch where people are like, well, I'm not sure what I should talk about, or I'm not sure how to engage with that person. I'm not sure how to have a, meaningful conversation with this group of people over here. And I feel kind of like an outsider. Well, the more you know, the more you can engage the people that are around you, the more educated conversations that you can potentially have. My son here a while back, he's again at 16, is trying to figure out world religion. Like that's kind of his thing in his mind right now. He's trying to make sense of it to himself. And he's got some things he strongly agrees with. He's got some things he strongly disagrees with. And he was like, "Can you get me Bibles?" And I'm like, I didn't know what he was doing at first. I was like, "What are you doing?" He's asking myself. He was asking his grandmother, like his yaya, "Can you get me different Bibles?" And the more I was talking about it, he goes, "If I'm going to have the strong opinions that I have, I need to make sure that they're well founded, that they have a structure behind them, where I'm not just like throwing around my opinions." He goes, "I want to have educated conversations with people about religion, but I need to understand it if I'm going to have at least an educated conversation about it." And so the reason I bring him up, I think in a lot of our worlds, is that we kind of like get to a place in our life. He's young. Very easy though, when you get into your 40s and 50s, you just kind of go like, this is my knowledge base. This is what I know. This is who I am. And we kind of go through life. And we very easily can turn into that person where the kids are going, "You don't know what that word means?" Like, really? Like, and you're feeling very uncool all of a sudden. Like, this world is changing fast. These opinions out here are changing quickly. Like, the best thing you can do is put yourself into a learning mindset and be willing to learn new things around you. Especially, Matt, so we can have educated conversations, because that's what a big part of our business is based on, is being able to talk to people.
Yeah. And there's so many other great things that come from doing that. I mean, you think about if you want to take responsibility for the growth of your business, being in a learning mindset is going to allow you to just look at different situations in a different way, in a more positive, in a more constructive way. The story of Otto is fantastic, because how many times do we see people out there grabbing a headline from a news article, or even just what somebody says once about a book or something, and taking that and then applying it into their business as if that is truth and fact? I mean, it's crazy. I mean, the headlines recently, at the time of this recording, are about the attorney who is on the plaintiff side of the NAR case, saying, "Hey, we're looking out for criminal charges," right? Was this headline. And everyone's like, "Oh gosh, now if I don't get my paperwork right, they're going to file criminal charges against me."
I had somebody go like, "I don't even know what the fines are." Like, they were trying to figure out what the fines were that they were going to be charged. I'm like, you are literally looking for the, like, where's the accident going to happen? Like, is it going to be here? Is it going to be there? Like,
and if you just react off that headline, now, if you're in a habit of learning, reading books, diving deeper into things, you're going to say, "Hey, I got to click into that and understand," where some people just don't. If you're not in the habit of reading and diving deeper, you're not clicking into that. And if you did and actually read the entire interview or watched it, I think it's you. I read it. He talked about looking for the criminal charges that are based against the laws that already exist, violation of fair housing and antitrust. He didn't talk anything about, and he also even said, "I'm not a criminal attorney. Like, if that comes up, like, we're referring that out to somebody else. That's not our place to go do it." But of course they're looking out for it. Everybody's looking out for that. We are in a litigious society, for one. And also, these are laws, when he was talking about that exist. The rule changes, right? So when you dive into this stuff, you get to learn, and you also get more comfortable so that you can take responsibility for your own business. And I know we kind of gone down a path on that there with that, but I want to come back to also just broadening your knowledge base, Garrett, so you can share it with others too. It's one, to understand what's going on in current events and the lingo that our kids are using, which I use the Google machine a lot.
we got schooled over dinner the other night where I had 3 kids sitting at my dinner table that were all throwing out all the new slang terminology of the world today. Both Sarah and I were like going, "So would you use it this way?" And they're like, "No, you wouldn't use it that way." We're like, "Okay, well, how about this way?" it was like hitting the wrong button every single time. Like I still don't know how to approach it. Very uncool.
That aspect is awesome, but also just learning little things that you can then go and apply into a business or reinforce. As an example, this morning I had my gratitude and winning the morning session with Luca on his Discord, and I read a little bit out of The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson, which is a book that I've read multiple times. But rereading this one part about the success and failure curve and responsibility and versus blame, it reinforced a thought process into me, and going in and reading those things installs new kind of software inside of me so that I can operate better. And that is the benefit from always seeking and always learning new things or reinforcing the things you already know so that you can become resilient and you can build a stronger business and apply those things, because sometimes the old things, Garrett, will continue to work, but sometimes new twists on them or new things are going to be important for growth.
Well, in this world that changes fast. And so this is what I found, because I do like going back and listening to books again and again and again. And there are certain books that I have on my shelf that I'm like, yeah, that book is 20 years old and I'm going to pull it back out and read it again at some point. And I'm always fascinated by when you're reading through one of those books to go, oh, that's funny. That book isn't that old, but that piece of it isn't applicable anymore. Like that doesn't work. Or like I watch them right now. You can see the ones that were written before COVID. And there's elements in there that we know about our society and the changes that have gone that have not been applied, that would have been very well applied in this book. Like I bet you when the author was watching the world do he was going like, huh, I wish I waited like a year to publish this book, because I would have had 2 more chapters on this thing that would have been perfect. Like there's things that you're going to pull from old material that we've read and great, but there's always these updates to our society, updates to this world around us, updates to the way finances work. Speaking of the philosophy of psychology of money that we just read through, that's a prime book of like, there are things in that book that I was going like, that doesn't apply anymore. But one of the things that he said in that book was money and finances is still very, very, very young in the grand scheme of things. And we're still learning a lot, and we're learning a lot about why markets do certain things and why changes cause different changes to happen. And we think we would have like a rock solid understanding of it, but we need to always be learning. We need to always be growing around this. And I think that, when you have that mindset of always learning, not just accepting everything as fact, but always saying, okay, well, what's changed? What's different? Where is this going? You can adapt. This marketplace that we're in right now with real estate, and everybody, I love that you said it's not laws, it's rule changes. Because a lot of people are looking at this as law changes when it comes around this stuff. But it's rule changes. And as you can watch the people out there, Matt, that are open and willing to learn the new rules and go, okay, now how do I work in this new environment? To the ones that are looking at it as, how can I not work the way that I used to work? It's like, it's 2 different mindsets of how am I going to adapt to this, and what are all the things I can't do anymore? It's 2 very different ways to look. One's adapting, one is getting kind of shut down in the moment. And we need to be in that learning. And the nice thing is, we as humans do this naturally. We want to learn, we want to adapt, but it's different to put yourself into that learning mindset. So, we talked a little bit about books. When in real estate, in the real estate world, we got these wonderful conferences that are put on, and I've made fun of conferences for years. I have said things like conferences are a lot of times a reason for people to go out and act poorly, like kind of go like, oh, I'm away from my world and my responsibilities, and I'm going to go goof off.
It is an aspect of it, let's be honest.
It's funny. I've got a band that I follow, and one of the things they talk about going on tour, he goes, this whole code that's on tour of you don't have to be faithful to your wife when you're on tour. I was so happy when he came out and went like, I hate the music industry for this. I've been in it for 40 years and I don't like this aspect and this mentality about it. That's where that comes from. I've seen that in that side of those conferences, and that's where my brain is twisted over the years. I'm like, just don't like it. However, there is incredible learning opportunities. Like you get into these environments. I've been going to some conferences here recently, and I walked out of there with pages and pages and pages and pages and pages of notes. And when I look at that, these are pieces that, like, if I didn't put myself in that environment, easily, I'm 1 year behind this huge group of people that had this entirely different way of looking at how you use the internet, how we do searches, how we set up our websites, how we get the media that we need into the hands of our clients. Like, you very quickly, as fast as this world's changing, if you're not in that learning mentality, you can get left behind pretty quick. It's a really important mindset to put yourself into.
Yeah, then you bring up conferences. There's so many ways to learn, and it's from going to a conference, from just engaging in conversation with other people, to watching videos, and then the next step of applying that learning. Right? Our brains are always changing. Right? Neuroplasticity is happening all the time, and we can either use that in the positive direction or in the negative direction. If we sit there and we don't do anything, we don't pick up a book, we don't go to a conference, and then don't subsequently try to apply it, we're going to get stuck in a loop of unlearning versus engagement and openness, right? Which is going to change how we look at things. And I think the application of what we learn becomes very crucial. And this is what I encourage people to do: is if you are always looking to learn, then teach the things that you learn. Right. And then I don't mean going out on necessarily on a platform and saying, hear ye, look what I just learned, and I'm going to teach all of you that thing. Right. You look for opportunities to apply it in real estate as an example. Right. How many agents do we talk to sometimes, Garrett, are like, I'm not good with numbers. Right. It's like, well, learn it, because as you learn it, you have an incredible audience who would love to know what you know about the numbers. And if you are struggling with numbers a little bit, imagine the people who aren't in the industry, who don't pay attention to this stuff every single day. There's an incredible opportunity for you to learn and continually learn by looking at trends and diving into data, and then sharing that stuff in a way where people go, man, I just learned something from Garrett. He just taught me something about how the market works and all these things about supply and demand. And that's the advantage of applying what you learn versus, because learning is great too, but if you don't apply it, then we just kind of fill up this knowledge and it doesn't really work in our favor.
Well, and I think you need to be, because you can sit on YouTube all day long and say, I'm learning. And you're right. You're just consuming time and consuming data that you're never going to have a use for the most part. I do think it's to get pinpointed with your learning. Well, like tonight. So my daughter's getting her real estate license, and there's a town meeting going on about a development project here in town. And I told my daughter, I said, we're going 4:00 today. We're heading down to the courthouse, and we're going to sit down there and we're going to learn about all this new development and what it means for the neighborhoods around it and how it's going to affect. And it does back up to my lot line. So like, I'm fascinated to hear about what's going to happen here and what this is going to look like. But I told her, I said, if you're truly going to get your real estate license, like if this is the direction you're really seriously going, like you need to be at these meetings, because the more knowledgeable you are about this type of activity going on in our town, when somebody you're having a conversation with and they're like, oh yeah, there's such and such happening over there, you can turn around and be like, oh yeah, this is what's going on. And what have you heard about it? And you can have, again, as we were saying earlier, an educated conversation instead of just being somewhere there that's going like, well, I got my license, but I don't really know all that stuff. And I don't really understand those things over there. All you got to do is go learn a little bit. And these opportunities are all around us. Matt, what is your favorite way of kind of like when you look at like learning information to grow, to better yourself for your business that you're in, that we're in, and where we're going? What are your kind of favorite ways of consuming knowledge and information?
I really like books. I used to not be a reader when I was young, and maybe that was because it was forced on me, right? In school, you're like, read this book, read this book. But then as I grew up and started getting into business books, like I mentioned, The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson earlier in this episode, I love taking things from books and then being like, cool, I can go apply that, right? And books have so much information. Some of the good ones have so much, it's like I can't even think of how to apply that next. But books become the gateway. From why I like books is they become this gateway into more, right? If you happen to like the author, it'll lead me to their podcast or to their YouTube channel to learn more. If it's a concept, it might lead me to other books or groups of people who are studying that concept or engaging in that concept together. And I will say some of the things that I apply into my daily routines and habits and structure, personal structure and business structure, all have come, at least have started from something I read somewhere in a book. And people are like, wow, like that's incredible. Like, no, I didn't see it on a YouTube channel. Like, those are the things where I go get reinforcement. And maybe it's because when you think about the process of putting together a book, like it's not I can make a YouTube video in 5 minutes. Now, if I want to make an in-depth, detailed thing, it might take me a little bit longer, at most maybe a month, right? But a book like takes a long time for someone to produce, particularly some of these really good ones. A lot of thought, a lot of editing goes into it. And so that it is the best of the best that comes out into that book, because obviously the authors want it to be a big success. So it's going to be good. And that's why I love, and what I've heard all the different phrases like readers are leaders and learners are earners, right? And so if you want to be a great leader and you want to earn a whole lot, then read and be a learner. How about you, Garrett? Where do you like to dive in?
Well, it's funny. It took me till later in life, a lot later, to become a reader. And it's funny, we joke about this in my household because my kids are like, "You don't read, Dad." Well, I listen. Audible is literally my way. I have to consume.
But you're an auditory learner, which
I'm
is
an
unique.
auditory with ADHD, so I need to keep moving. Like I have to be moving. Like I'll clean the garage and listen to a book at the same time on headphones. Because otherwise, like if I'm not moving, I can't retain information. But what's really interesting about that is it allows me to have a book going in the background, and I'm always fighting: do I put music on or do I put a book on? Because both of them will kind of turn my brain off and allow me to get into that zone. But I would say Audible is probably like my number one place I go to. And then I'm a big podcast, kind of like, I don't like full long length podcasts. I like grabbing snippets of like short videos of like kind of interviews. And I think the reason I like those the most is that I've learned since we've been podcasting together, Matt, when we get a chance to interview somebody, that's probably where I learn the most. Because I get to interact with somebody and I get to ask deeper questions and kind of like, and it's funny, sometimes it's on the actual interview itself where we're doing it live, Matt, but sometimes it's the before and after, or it's the follow up maybe a week later where I'll circle back around with somebody and ask some more questions about a piece that we talked about. That's where I find my biggest learning happens. And then that leads me to putting yourself just around people is your environment to learn in. And this is where I think a lot of people, when they're in environments, when they're in a group of people, we're always looking at what do we talk about? And if you have that mindset of always kind of being in an interview type of mindset with these people that you're with, there's always people to learn from and there's always people to grow with all around you. If you just stop and ask questions. So I think that's my one of probably my biggest areas is that ability of just asking questions with the people that I'm sitting around, because that's where I find my biggest learning happens. And a lot of times what's interesting is you don't even know where it's going to go. Then that's what I think is the most fascinating to me is it's not like a set plan of picking up a book of like, I'm going to learn this. It's like, well, let's see what kind of interesting thing I'm going to learn in this environment today.
I love that. And that's exactly why we encourage people so often to ask questions when they're having conversations. And, from our prior podcast, we talked a lot about interviewing people when you're sitting down to, develop business, quote unquote, because the more you learn about someone, the more you can serve them. But if you take this approach that you're talking about and say, like, what can I learn from this person in front of me to apply in my life? It's just going to enhance that connection. And so, I know we didn't set this up to be a plug for the 11 Circle, but I was thinking as you're talking, like, what do we have inside the 11 Circle? Well, we have a book of the month to encourage people to learn. We have a community where you can engage people and interview other people. We bring on guest, the speakers to come on and teach things where you can then do Q&A and learn. And it's like, we've created this learning platform in here, which we'd love for all you to be a part of. Just go to lifeat10tenths.com to join in there. And I know that sounds like a little bit of a sales pitch, and I guess it is, but we start to create the things that we like to do, right? And if you create, and I've seen this happen with some people in real estate too, where they enjoy learning so much that all of a sudden they start teaching, right? Dennis Tuttle does this down in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Arlington area, where he teaches classes basically every week on real estate investing and all these things because he just loves sharing the things that he's learned, and he does it for free. And I've seen other people do this. So you see, we're going to have Ricky Carruth on the podcast coming up here. He started teaching and coaching for free through Instagram because he wanted to share all the stuff that he learned and help others grow. And that's the cool thing is the more you learn, the more you want to share, and the more you get invested in other people, and the more you also look to learn from other people, which just, it's just a good thing, man.
Well, as we've learned, Matt, in the environment that we've put ourselves around, like there's really cool people all around us. There is amazing information all around us. You just got to be willing to learn. You got to be willing to take it in around you and to, as you said, then going to go teach it. I think that's a whole nother level of owning the information that now that you've obtained. And not everybody's willing to do that. I think there's a little bit of I don't know if it's a risky side or if it's kind of an uneasy side when you take that information and you put it out in the world. But again, that it's a way to, in a very powerful way, understand the information that you're taking in. And I watch it again and go back to my daughter who's learning and getting her real estate license right now. There's a difference of people that go through just to get their real estate license. Like they just click the buttons and get the test done and move through it and like, oh, I'm a real estate agent. To like my daughter who always struggled in school. School was not the easiest thing for her. When she went off to college, both her mom and I were like, really? You really want to do this? Like we said it to ourselves. We didn't say it to her because she got there and she goes, didn't you guys know I didn't like school? We're like, yeah, we knew. We just weren't saying anything to you. Like we wanted you to go have your experience. But it's interesting, like the level that she's taking of learning real estate right now, like the educated conversations I can have with her, that she knows real estate probably better than most realtors I know right now when it comes to buy the book, when it comes to all the information that you're going to be learning through that. And I have the utmost confidence in her by getting her to regurgitate the information to me, her teaching me about certain things. I'm like, whoa, you know what you're talking about. And I think that when you look at the realtors that we get to work with, Matt, all the great people that we bring into our world that we coach, they've got tremendous knowledge in there. And I always tell them, like, does the world around you understand the value that you have? Through your marketing, through your media that you've got going out, through all the stuff, like the more you're learning, the more you can share. But there's also the information you have inside that maybe you're not sharing out. And it's a huge piece in people building confidence with you. It's a huge piece of people saying, that's how I know them. They're my expert in real estate. And I think for a lot of you out there listening to this, it's like, what do you want to go learn today? What do you want to go learn today specifically, as Matt said, not just consuming information, but what do you want to go learn that's going to raise the game of your real estate? What if you set a goal every month to say, I'm going to be better at understanding real estate investments this month. I'm going to do as much research as I possibly can this month just on real estate investments. What if next month you did I'm just going to learn as much as I can about interest rates and how they affect us and what makes them do what they're going to do and who makes the decisions of what these interest rates are going to be doing, and see if I can gather as much information about that. Then why don't you switch the next month to commercial real estate and see if you can surround yourself and take as many commercial brokers in your town out to lunch, ask questions, learn from them. In literally a 6-month time period, you will be a different real estate agent. You will have a completely different understanding of this industry that you've been in probably for a long time, just keeping it simple. Grow. I encourage you to grow.
I love that challenge. And so let's put that out there, right? I mean, one thing
We just created a challenge. There you go, guys.
One thing a month, man, that's 30 days to die. I mean, interest rates is such a great one too, because it's one of those things that I find there's more that I need to learn about how all that stuff works too. But you see people like, well, I heard this from a client the other day saying, well, I got a buyer who's kind of waiting because Jerome Powell came out and said that they might lower interest rates and people are waiting for mortgage rates to come down. It's like, okay, well, maybe we should go and research and understand the correlation between the Fed controlling their rate and how that then goes and impacts mortgage rates, because it's not direct. Yeah, sure, there's some correlation, but it may not be direct once you start to understand 10-year treasury and all these other things and how that might impact mortgage rates, supply and demand, money supply, what's going on with the banks, right? Because, I mean, hey, interest rates dropped basically a full percentage point not that long ago, and I didn't really see much change in demand from that. So diving into interest rates for a month, imagine what you're going to learn. Oh, gosh, man. Okay.
I have a feeling that's the one on my list because I know interest rates. I know how they work for myself as a general consumer, but like I haven't gone a deep dive into why, what, and how that all kind of works in there. And it's amazing how much information is at our fingertips nowadays. You know, we kind of take it for granted that we have this, you know, the Google here that we can go and apply, you know, ask any question we want at any given time. And sometimes we just don't even know the questions to ask. And that would be, you know, the start of the challenge is pick something you want to learn more about and just sit down with Google and just see how many different ways you can ask a question. And then, you know, look at your database and look at the people that are around you and see if you can, again, as I said, set up some lunches, set up some coffee, set up some, some phone calls. And then just see where that takes you. It's amazing. And again, in this idea of real estate, I said investing, you know, we got interest rates, talked about commercial, but I also look about like, what about development? You know, what about what's happening in your city with all the, you know, different plans and what's going on and the plans for downtown? Like there are so many things going on that affect real estate that sometimes we just don't even pick our heads up. So we have a challenge, Matt.
I love it.
Challenge on.
Fantastic.
Game on.
Always be learning. ABL. I love it, man. Well, Garrett, take us out of here, my friend.
All right. Well, I appreciate everybody showing up and playing with us today. If you want to learn more about our coaching program, we have the 11 Circle, and it's inside Life at 1010. So if you go to www.life at 1010, you will find us, and then you will see the 11 Circle. And the 11 Circle is where we have all the great stuff that Matt was talking about a little bit ago. We've got guests that come in and speak and teach. We've got an amazing community of people that share and grow together. We have accountability sessions. We have live group coaching in there. We'd love to have you be part of that world. Come and join us in there, but that is the 11 Circle. And with that being said, I just appreciate everybody spending your time. Matt, appreciate your time as always. And look forward to seeing you guys down the road.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.